someone with Alzheimer's or other form of dementia, support group is really incredibly powerful to help with people that are going through the same thing that you are. And finally, at Atria Senior Living here in Newhall, right up there on Lyons, there will be an art class for seniors, Zoni's Watercolors. And that's on Monday, November 20th at 1 p.m. Monday the 20th at 1. It's interesting. There's been a lot of looking at art therapy and using art and the creative process to help people that both have cognitive as well as physical limitations. Check that out over at Atria. And if you, for any of this information or other information on local resources, you can check that out on our website, homecaresantaclarita.com. And you can check out more on our Facebook page at Home Care Services Santa Clarita, where we have more information as well as a broadcast every Monday that provides a rundown of what's going on in the Santa Clarita Valley. So we go through a lot of these, the ones I just mentioned, and then a whole bunch more that would be very helpful to those who are dealing with some assistance for somebody in their home. You again are listening to the Home Care Resource Hour. Rick Ferrante at your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. So, you are in the situation where you see that a parent needs help. Well, okay, you didn't sign up for this, right? This role is not what you were trained for, okay? You didn't go to school for it, and there is just a lot involved. There's many factors involved with that kind of situation, and here to help us work through it, because she went through it, is my guest, Rachel Jorgensen. Rachel, how are you? And thanks for being here with us.
I'm well, and thank you for having me, Rick.
I appreciate you coming in. This is obviously certainly a tough situation that you went through, and we've talked at length about it. And I think one of the things that people need to understand is, okay, or when you're talking to somebody that's maybe doesn't necessarily know that this is coming down the track, right? This is a train that's headed this way. People aren't realizing it. So it would be very helpful, to kind of start with the process. What went on, and this is with your father.
Yes.
Right? So let us know, what was the situation and how did this all kind of transpire?
My father had dementia, and we had noticed signs a few years ago. His type of dementia affected his speech. So he was missing words, and we knew that there was something wrong, but it was still very difficult to discuss it with him. We wanted him to maintain a quality of life. But then it got to the point where he started wandering, and my brother was called in the middle of the night several times to find him. So at that point we knew it was dangerous for him to be at home without some assistance. Mm-hmm. So we talked to him, and luckily got him into assisted living. I'm not from this area, so luckily my brother is, and his wife helped. She knows a lot of people up here, and we were able to get him into assisted living. His wishes were to be taken care of at home, which is a wonderful thing. But because of his dementia, his house was not in the condition, the proper condition for someone with dementia to live in. He lived in a large home, needed a lot of repairs, and we needed to get him somewhere where he could get immediate attention and taken care of while we got his house ready, and then I did my research for home care. And assisted living was great. He was in a memory care part of the assisted living. A lot of pros to that. He adapted very well to it. He enjoyed it, but he still wanted to come home. So we proceeded to take care of his house to get it ready for him. There was a lot more repairs than we had anticipated, so it took a lot longer. Because of his speech problems, he went to see a speech therapist. Luckily, he was a psychologist, and he helped me prepare that home for someone with dementia. Meaning, because he had a large home, we had to size that home down to make him feel more comfortable. Meaning locking a lot of the rooms up so he couldn't access them, locking the closets, and removing several things from the home because things are overwhelming for someone with dementia. So that took time, and then we also put a camera system in the home so that we could monitor him. And because I don't live in the area, I could be at home and look at the camera and see that he was okay. So at that point, I did a little research on home care and interviewed companies, and felt very comfortable after meeting Eileen at Home Care Services. And then she was very knowledgeable and helped me kind of prepare for him to come home as well. Once we got him home, he was happy. We had 24-hour care, 4 caregivers. The one thing that was important to me, and it was important to my father, is food.
It's important to me too.
He loved to eat, and he was used to having incredible meals, and he wanted that to continue. So that was Eileen was able to get caregivers who were passionate about cooking, and I was up there quite a bit helping them cook, and it was just an ideal situation. I was very, very lucky.
Tough situation that, I mean, yeah, nobody wants that, but it's ideal in the sense that, you're kind of able to navigate that journey. And that's what it was, it sounds like. Quite a journey. How, from start to end here, I mean, this was quite a bit of time.
Well, it took us 7 months to get my father back home.
Just to get him.
Him back home. And then he was home for about 9 months. But the journey from when I took over, it was not quite 2 years, but it is a long journey. And with dementia, you don't know how long that journey is going to be.
Let's unpack that a little, the whole thing a little bit. I appreciate you kind of going through the story, because I would imagine that there are people in our community who can kind of relate here to at least part of it, right? Where, or there's maybe a expectation or a potential that could be coming down the pike somewhere, whether it's here locally or somewhere else, doesn't matter. The point is that, might be getting to this point. So let's unpack it a little bit. And you talked a little bit about dementia and Alzheimer's or other form of dementia. Very challenging. And it sounds like that there were some things in place before that became a problem, rather than having to deal with it after this dementia sort of surfaced. Is that?
That's correct. I was fortunate. My parents did set up paperwork that put me in charge, and that's very, very important for anyone in this situation, is to make sure that everything is in place before something happens. So that I was fortunate to have. I mean, no one's ever really prepared for when it happens. And because he had had symptoms for quite a while, I was preparing myself personally, mentally, because I knew this day would come. And fortunately, I have a sibling who was on the same page, so I could communicate with him. And then I started reading about dementia. Before I even was put in the role, I was really trying to prepare and understand how to approach my father with, the future. Because in his mind, he was fine. Mm-hmm. There was nothing wrong.
We had a conversation about how you had worked in terms of how this is going to work with this assisted living move from his house to assisted living, and what you had to do. Maybe you can kind of share a little bit of that.
Well, just timing. There was a brand new assisted living that had opened up, and it was quite beautiful facility. And we were staying at a hotel while they got his room ready, and we discussed with Dad that, we would have to leave this hotel, but we were going to go to another hotel.
Not to assisted living. We're going to another hotel.
Right. And it's sad to think that you do have to kind of talk that way, but I think there's a lot of negativity in their mind, and they're afraid, and they don't know really what's going on. But anyway, we went over there, and he loved it. He said, "Oh, this is a beautiful place." And we went into memory care. There's quite a few people, and very friendly atmosphere. He just loved it and was meeting people. And then it dawned on him where he was. And then he said, "Okay, well, how long am I going to be here?" And we said, "Until your house is ready." And he said, "Okay." He was fine.
It's one of these things where, and we see this a lot when I've been doing presentations with Alzheimer's Association and talking about Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, and the challenges that people have on this, something that you've just described, where this is sort of this is a situation where we need to have you in this assisted living for whatever period of time or whatever it was, but there is a kind of because of the dementia, there is an irrational kind of, no, I don't want to go, and I don't care whatever you do, I'm never going there, and that's it, obstinance. And so what you did is, it sounded like you didn't argue.
No.
It's not an argument.
No.
What the association calls that, and I really like this term because it's so descriptive of what you're actually doing, and that's putting yourself into their reality. So it's saying, look, I'm not going to try to convince you per se. I'm not trying to teach you. I mean, this is an adult. This is, it's just they have this disease. And instead, I'm going to redirect this, or in your case, call it something different. And then it sounds like that worked.
Yes, it did. Also, we knew what our limitations, even in a conversation with my father. And we were very open and very honest even about what he had put in place for us when something like this would happen, that I would take care of him. And you just take it slow. You don't try to overwhelm them, because you'd be surprised how much overwhelms them. So everything is kept very simple, and I was always very honest with my father, but I kept it very short and simple. I didn't try to elaborate on anything.
So now you get from that point, and then we're the desire here from your father is to go home, which it sounds like was sort of from the beginning, but then you kind of had this long time frame that you had to prepare it. So what are some of the things then you did to prepare your home that other people that are in this situation might want to consider that maybe they haven't?
Well, you want to make your home safe, number one. Of course, with dementia, we had locked drawers. We put all of the sharp objects or anything that would harm him or he could use to harm someone away for safety reasons. We took everything out of the garage, even his car, because he still wanted to drive, and we knew that wasn't safe. And so that he wouldn't put himself in a situation where he thought he could handle, but he really can't handle. And instead of saying you can't drive or you can't do this, or we just removed it out of his sight. And yes, he would question where's my car or whatever, and we would say, well, I would just tell him it's at my house, needs repairs.
Another example of putting yourself in their reality, right? And
right.
Let's not argue about the fact that you should be driving or not.
No.
The car's not working.
No, exactly. And I think it was just helping him not think about these things. He liked to go through things. If he had a drawer, he would go through the drawer and go through everything and look at it and examine it, and it is a lot about redirecting. If he got obsessed about one thing, then what was great about the caregivers is they would redirect him into something that was a more positive thing for him to do. Because of the speech therapy, he had homework, and to learn his words, to repeat words, to do math problems, to do things that would retain his memory, and those caregivers helped him do that homework.
So it sounds like an important aspect if somebody's considering things like this is to think about those kinds of things, like,
Yes.
cognitive stimulation or something
Yes.
that he enjoyed or something. Was that
Yes.
kind of, you looked at some of those?
And music. You talked about music therapy. He loved music, and so that we had on a lot. He lost interest in TV. At first, he was interested, but then the music became much more important for him, and he enjoyed that music. He also enjoyed the caregivers reading to him, which was stimulating for him. And I think what helped with my father is that we never treated him like he had dementia. It was just every day was a new day, and we tried to make it fun and exciting for him. And so, I mean, my advice to people is to focus on their parent.
Yeah, so this, and if you had to kind of give that one bit, so if I'm looking at this thing, what should I be thinking about the most here?
Yeah, for your parent and what their needs are. And you put yourself second, and you know that it's going to be a long road, but that road isn't going to be forever. And just focus on their happiness and what makes them happy. And it's rewarding, even though it's a lot of work, and it's not really what you would like to do. It's it is still rewarding to see your parent happy and smiling and know that they've enjoyed some part of their day.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing, like I said, people don't expect to be doing, and so they maybe put them, don't want to think about it kind of thing. And I think that's what you're saying is, look, first of all, prepare for it, but then put your parent first.
Yes.
Okay. And then you kind of just work through it based on whatever the situation is. Well, quite a journey you've had to go through, and I think there's a lot of people out there that, again, might or probably will be entering into some form of that appreciate you kind of going through and, sharing it with us. I know it's hard, and, the whole thing, trying to bring all that back up in your mind, it's hard, but we really appreciate it, and thanks for coming in. It's great to have you on the show, and then just those thoughts and insights, and then, difficult situation. Thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you, Rick.
Thanks for coming in. So, and if you want more information or have questions regarding this or any of our conversations here on the show, so we go through a lot of things and kind of bring up a lot of topics and so on, contact us at Home Care Services. We're at 661-412-0710, or go to our website. That's www.homecaresantaclarita.com. Now, after the break, so you need to get someone to help your parent at home, just like we talked about, but want to save a few bucks. Maybe hire a friend or a neighbor, or maybe someone from your church, or even just someone you found online. We have Jeff Hacker of the Hacker Law Group next in the studio to talk to you about how doing that might bring up some really difficult issues. That's next on the Home Care Resource Hour on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top-quality musicals and plays. Located in Old Town Newhall, the CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go to canyontheater.org.
The Las Vegas shooting created awareness for all of us. Awareness to upgrade security at concerts. Awareness for clearly marked exit signs. Awareness on how to evacuate safely. And awareness to have tighter hotel security. The law offices of Owen Patterson Owen are working diligently with Las Vegas victims to prevent future tragedies from occurring, as well as protecting the rights of Las Vegas victims to receive financial assistance for their ordeal. If you know someone impacted by the shooting, visit opolaw.com. That's opolaw.com.
It's allergy season again. You've tried it all, yet your sinuses continue to be a problem. Try something different, something holistic, something that will really work. Acupuncture. Kathleen Keneally is Santa Clarita's acupuncture and innate specialist. She's been treating many of your neighbors and their children for allergies, sinuses, headaches, and pain. Find out how acupuncture can improve the quality of your life. Call Kathleen Keneally for a free phone consultation. 252-4100. 252-4100. Acupuncture. It really works.
Satisfy your sweet tooth with a bite of sweet perfection from Nothing Bundt Cakes in Valencia. Their decadent cakes are ideal for your next birthday, anniversary, baby shower, wedding, holiday party, and more. Nothing Bundt Cakes makes their treats readily available without compromising quality. You can expect real butter and cream cheese, fresh eggs, and lots of love in each of their 10 luscious flavors. To order your own sweet treat, visit their Valencia Bakery in the Whole Foods Shopping Center or log on to nothingbundtcakes.com.
There's only one Santa Clarita plastic surgeon who is Yale trained and board certified, Dr. Justin Heller.
To be a board certified plastic surgeon like myself, what that truly entails is about 5 to 7 years of honed surgical training in reconstructive, all areas, as well as aesthetics, which means your facelifts, your breast augmentations, your body contouring, true training, and board certification. In fact, that's the only board certified area that can be achieved in this realm.
Dr. Justin Heller, warm, understanding, always available for guidance because he's local. HellerPlasticSurgery.com.
KHTS.
Welcome back to the Home Care Resource Hour. I'm Rick Ferrante on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for those in our community who have a senior or other loved one who may need some assistance in their home, and it is produced by Home Care Services Santa Clarita. So, mom or dad are having a difficult time. You want to bring someone in to help them with a lot of the daily activities that might be giving them some trouble. You check out the agencies, and while they screen and train and manage caregivers, you think you might try to save some money and hire someone directly. Maybe there's a friend of a friend that is currently out of work, or someone you know at the gym, or from church or somewhere. Perhaps a kindly neighbor wants to make some money on the side. To talk about some of the issues that might come up when someone hires a private caregiver, we have in the studio Jeff Hacker of the Hacker Law Group. Mr. Hacker was admitted to practice in law in California and has been practicing in Santa Clarita since 1983. Over the years, Mr. Hacker has represented financial institutions, celebrities, accident victims, real estate developers, realtors, contractors, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and other individuals with legal challenges. In addition to special expertise in business, catastrophic accidents, and real estate law, Mr. Hacker possesses a wide breadth of legal experience ranging from major contractual negotiations to highly specialized complex litigation. Mr. Hacker has been involved in more than 300 court trials, jury trials, arbitrations, and mediations over his 30-year career. Jeff Hacker, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm assuming because it was all that time, 30 years, you started when you were 9 years old, something along those lines? Must have been, right?
I wish that was true, but it seems that way.
Seems that way. Okay, so what about that? A friend of my sister's friend told her that she could earn a few extra bucks and might be able to take care of my folks. Good idea?
Probably not. It might be, but you have to start at the beginning, which is what's the background and experience of the friend or neighbor from church? Does that person have the requisite skill and ability and experience in order to take care of your loved one? For instance, what are you asking the friend from church or a neighbor to do? Are you asking that person to perform anything related to the medical field? And if so, what is that person's background and experience to be able to take care of it? Also, unexpected things happen every day. What is that person's background and experience and qualifications to be able to take care of that? Then there are other things that pop up. For instance, what do you know about the friend or the neighbor? Do they have a criminal record? Do you know if they have a criminal record? Do you know if they've been, if they're litigious, meaning have they sued people in the past because of something that would be considered, frivolous or ridiculous? So you got to really know what you're getting yourself into and the person that you're getting yourself into. And then you also have to investigate what legal relationship are you going to create with the person.
That's a good question right there with the legalities of things. So if I hire somebody today, and they're an employee, and they've got to be, and through an agency, they're an employee, and they have all the, we have all the requirements, legal and financial, and all the requirements as an employee. Now I can hire a contractor to build a patio cover, but if I'm hiring an actual employee, I've got a lot of other requirements and things that I've got to do, payroll and the workers' comp and all this stuff. Now, if somebody, an individual, just hires somebody and says, okay, you got to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning and you leave at 5 and you got to do this and you got to do that, what's the difference between that and an employee, or is that an employee?
Well, sounds like it's an employee. Our friends at the government, the IRS, use 20 common law factors to determine whether or not somebody's acting as an employee or an independent contractor. And typically they focus on a couple of issues, the first one being control. And what you've just described, you're telling somebody when to show up, you're telling them the hours that they work, and you're probably also providing what's known as tools of the trade. In other words, the tools necessary for someone to do their job. On an 8 to 5 situation, they're probably not working for somebody else, so they're probably lock, stock, and barrel yours. So if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, in this case, you can call that person an independent contractor, but more likely than not, that person really is an employee. And if you make the mistake of treating that person as an independent contractor, you're running the risk of a number of things. One, although there are some specific regulations that govern home health care workers, you're running the risk of not paying that person properly, either for overtime or if they're working on the weekend, perhaps double time, depending upon how many hours somebody's working. You're running the risk that if you don't do that, you're going to be subject to penalties and interest. You're being subjected to the labor commissioner coming in and scrutinizing you and penalizing you, or, sorry to say, a lawsuit, depending upon whether or not that person decides to go to a lawyer or not because they think that they haven't been treated fairly under California's labor laws.
So you're basically, in that case, just as much kind of in just as much of a scenario as any other employer, even though it's just Sally from next door. The problem is that now Sally next door isn't just a neighbor. Now she's an employee. Now things like, a lot of people do this, to avoid the taxes, because now they're 1099, so now they're independent contractors. So as long I can do all the things I want and give them the tools of the trade and tell them what they have to do, when they have to do, and so on. But as long as I hand them a 1099 instead of taking their taxes out, then I'm okay.
Well, you're okay until you're audited.
So, just like anything else like that.
And then when you are audited, or you're somebody, the relationship ends badly, and that person gets educated, which is very easy to do, either by a friend, neighbor, or lawyer. Being penny wise is going to be pound foolish. And the reason why it's going to be pound foolish is if that person really is an employee and you haven't handled that relationship correctly, besides the penalties and interest that we talked about, what about workers' compensation insurance, which is, of course, always a favorite topic of anybody who's going to be in the position of an employer. The failure to have workers' compensation insurance, if it's required, carries with it some criminal and civil penalties. If that person got injured on the job, and you said you're really an independent contractor, you can see the ramifications and you can see what the financial hit's going to be.
So somebody comes in, I hire, somebody from church, and they come in and they're doing all the things we described, and they slip and fall, or say they slipped and fell, or whatever it is. What can happen? I mean, at this point, what do they do and what are some of the kind of the downstream things that can happen to somebody if that happens to them?
Well, I'll sound like a lawyer for a second.
Which you are, so it's okay for just a second, Jeff.
Okay. If that person is an employee, then and you had workers' compensation insurance, then that person would make a claim under your workers' compensation insurance because it would have been an accident that arose out of and during the course and scope of your employment. If that person isn't, then and they're really an independent contractor, there's no really strict liability like there is in a workers' compensation arena. It's more, was there some type of negligence that on your part that caused it? The problem is that the risk that you're taking to treat that person as an independent contractor to avoid the workers' compensation insurance is highly risky unless it truly is an independent contractor situation. For instance, the neighbor is not only working for your family, but also working for 2 or 3 other families. And you're telling that person, okay, we need you part-time, let's say from 8 to 3 or 8 to 2 or some other time period, and that person brings her own supplies with her, as an example. She's got her own little business. More likely than not, that person's going to be treated as an independent contractor in that type of situation.
More compared to like a house cleaner would be sometimes that where they come in and they have all their things and they're just doing everybody's houses versus only yours and you supply everything. Is that kind of a difference?
I think that's a good analogy.
Uh-huh. That it's more like you're one of a bunch and then they have their own running thing versus, I'd like to take you on to cook and clean and all these other things.
Well, home health care, as you know, is extremely strenuous, and it's almost all-encompassing because of the effect it has on the family. So if, more likely than not, the typical situation, somebody who really needs almost round-the-clock care. And if you're looking for round-the-clock care and you're not going to go through an agency, you've got serious issues that you really have to plan for, investigate, and be prepared to handle in the event something goes wrong.
So let's talk about that, especially on the round-the-clock care scenario. So we kind of dabbled a little bit if somebody needs a few hours or something like that, but then there are definitely situations when somebody needs 24-hour care. And in particular, this comes up when that happens because, let's face it, that is expensive. It's a lot of hours of somebody working at your house. And so invariably when a cost factor comes up, it comes up in those circumstances because, it is really exceedingly expensive. So a lot of those situations, we've heard the term live-in. So it's somebody that's living in your house. Now, is that an employee-employer relationship if they're living at your house but you're doing the same thing? They're working 100% for you, obviously, at that case, because they're living there, and you're telling them what to do and so on. What are they described as?
I'd still describe them as an employee.
So you've got all those same elements that, okay. Now, I've also heard then if you actually have somebody live there, and they're caring for and the whole thing, and you want to let them go, you have for whatever reason. At that point, my understanding is you literally have to evict them.
You might.
That is another lawyer speak there because we want to make sure we cover all the bases, right?
Well, there's no limit to the range of the human mind. So life requires a certain degree of cooperation between people. When there's no cooperation, unfortunately, then there become a lot of times legal issues. In the situation where you've hired somebody to be a live-in, and You say, okay, it's not working out, time to go. And they say, make me. You can't resort to self-help, meaning you can't legally, as much as you want to, lock them out because there are a whole slew of laws against that. Can't turn off the electricity going to that one area is another example, or any other utilities. You've got to take the position, you've got to go to the courts and define what that relationship was. And if it's not defined in a writing, the person you're trying to evict is either going to say, listen, I had some type of tenancy, so I'm a tenant here. And your position's going to be maybe, well, I don't know if you were a tenant, but I thought you're really more of a squatter, or you're a trespasser. And in those three different categories are a whole set of different rules that apply on how to get somebody out. And the unlawful detainer or eviction process has become a very highly technical area of the law, and it is a living minefield. Somebody who knows their way around the mulberry bush can create havoc for you as a landlord or as the employer when you're trying to get rid of the person who's overstayed their welcome.
You were listening to the Home Care Resource Hour, and I'm Rick Ferrante on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We're in studio here with Jeff Hacker of the Hacker Law Group. And so, obviously, these are, I don't know, what's past Halloween, but sounds like horror stories here to me, of some of the things that can happen. Now, if you are in a situation where you do hire some agency, any agency, do those things then apply? Or is it the agency that has those issues that, all the things that you're describing, if they have, the relationship is then with the agency in terms of employee-employer?
Typically, you've passed all those problems on to the agency. Like everything else, there are exceptions, but that's one of the reasons that you want to use an agency. I would make the analogy like to an employment agency also, where you hire somebody who's a temporary employee, where the temporary employee is getting paid by the temp agency. They're responsible for workers' compensation, and they're taking the responsibility for the consequences of firing, for instance.
Okay, so yeah, you've kind of shifted all of that over to somebody else. Not that now that other somebody, that agency, still has got to do the right thing, pay them appropriately and everything. But if they're not, then they're the ones that are in trouble. And then if they slip and fall, then it's under that. For the most part, it's under that agency's workers' comp.
Right. If there's a slip and fall arising out of and during the course of employment, the phrase in workers' comp is AOE, COE. The answer is, yeah, it goes to the agency. But if the fall was caused by the negligence of, in this case, the homeowner, that would be a different situation.
Okay, so that kind of goes into the, like any kind of slip and fall situation. So if the homeowner has something that's a dangerous, I don't know, stairs or something that, or rickety railing, and the thing falls over, well, then of course, then that is more the homeowner's responsibility. But if it's under the normal work, so the ones that we see all the time, and is the more normal thing, is going to be, the back injuries from lifting and helping someone in and out of a wheelchair and out of the, whatever, all those kinds of mobility kind of issues. Those when you're working with an agency are then not going to be the homeowner's responsibility, but they will be the agency's responsibility because that's part of under the job description. Am I right?
Absolutely right. And to take it a step further is if you don't use an agency and you've hired that person yourself, then it's on your nickel.
Okay.
In which actually that's wrong. It'd be more like dollars than nickels.
So now just to give that an idea, so a lot of people say, look, okay, well, all right, so the difference is, a couple $100 over the course of a few months. And so if I get caught, I'll just pay the couple $100, right? And a couple penalties or whatever. It can't be that much different. Or is there more to it?
Oh, there's more to it.
It always is, right?
Always is. The penalties that you would be subjected to, especially if for the failure to have workers' compensation insurance, are thousands and thousands of dollars. So to save a few pennies or to be penny wise instead of pound foolish, as I said, is exactly that. You're being penny wise to be pound foolish. I don't recommend it, and you shouldn't do it.
So we're talking with Jeff Hacker of the Hacker Law Group here on the Home Care Resource Hour. I'm Rick Ferrante, and what we're talking about is in home care, but in the home care in the scenario where instead of going through an agency, there's somebody that and Jeff and I've seen this a lot, where it always seems like the one you really do know really well, and that's the one that comes back and bites you. I mean, I'm assuming what was it, 4 million different cases you've tried, or some number I'm rounding maybe, but you've done this a long time and you've seen a lot of things, and I'm assuming that you've seen some that people didn't expect this person to be. Oh, they're just great people. They never would do that to me.
It happens all the time. There's an old expression: "No good deed goes unpunished," and in my business, unfortunately, I see that on a daily basis. I see cases that are, my opinion, totally ridiculous that go through the system. And even if it's a ridiculous case, when no one's there at the beginning of a lawsuit to say whether it's ridiculous or not, you've got to go through the entire process, meaning to trial, God forbid, in order to say, okay, yeah, this really was ridiculous. I'm involved in a case where a realtor was showing a home. There was an open and obvious step down. Somebody didn't see the step, and they're suing their realtor for their failure to see the step. I mean, it's totally crazy.
So it's just the real estate agent. There wasn't their house.
Wasn't their house. It was at a showing. The realtor wasn't familiar with
of course, that's not
the house. Yeah.
And because they walked them through.
Somebody got unfortunately, somebody really was seriously injured when she fell. But just because there's a serious injury doesn't mean that somebody's responsible for it.
So the trouble is that these things, and yeah, I think that's part of the thing here is, and we see this a lot, where this isn't about not taking care of somebody who's seriously injured. That's not, and I know lawyers get a bad rap for this kind of thing, but it's because nobody's saying that. If somebody has has some issue there, or they need to be paid right, the taxes do need to be taken out, all these things that are jeopardies. But the idea here is who's responsible.
My reason for telling the story is that you've got a good friend. Something happens to the good friend is going to think about what's in the best interest of the good friend, not what's in the best interest of necessarily you. And people in life today just sometimes have a hard time taking responsibility for their own actions. Now, there are times when somebody who's seriously injured, it wasn't seriously injured because of their own fault. But if it is their own fault, there's nothing to deter somebody from forcing you through the system. And in the home health care discussion that we're having, if somebody was seriously injured, you're a good friend, they're going to be looking to you to help them out.
Let's pick this up a little bit after the break. I appreciate Jeff coming in, and you're listening to the Home Care Resource Hour. I'm Rick Ferrante at your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
Life's not meant to feel complacent. It's meant to make you feel alive. The youth ministry at the Church on the Way Santa Clarita believes that students can belong to the group, where they will help them believe they have a purpose in Christ and become all that He has created them to be. They want you to see God's power come alive in our generation. They love meeting new people, so go hang out with them. Doors open at 6 p.m. and service starts at 7 p.m. every Wednesday night. For more information about the Church on the Way Santa Clarita and what's happening through the end of the year, visit tcotwsc.org.
Your nails have amazing shine. What polish is that?
It's a gel manicure from Forever Nails and Spa.
What's a gel manicure?
It's a manicure that uses a special polish using a UV light. The polish has incredible shine and lasts for up to 14 days without chipping.
14 days? I've never heard of a polish lasting that long.
It's a great way to extend your manicure and save money on polish changes and touch-ups.
located on the old road at Valencia Boulevard. Visit forevernailsandspa.com.
It's time to put the pedal to the metal. I'm Alan Taylor, host of The Drive, your source for all things auto. Broadcasting from the Peterson Automotive Museum every Saturday morning from 6 to 9 a.m. right here on AM 1220 KHTS. Brought to you by your friends at Galpin Motors.
Hey Dodgers fans, check out the KHTS website at hometownstation.com. Get the latest news and sports happenings in our Santa Clarita Valley, find out more about KHTS shows and our on-air features, plus receive incredible discounts with our Restaurant Row certificates. That's hometownstation.com.
KHTS.
Welcome back to the Home Care Resource Hour. I'm Rick Ferrante on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We were talking before the break with Jeff Hacker of the Hacker Law Group, and we were going through some of the challenges, some of the both legal and financial liabilities that people can be subject to when they are doing and hiring somebody as a caregiver in their home. So we have a lot of families that are in this situation, both in terms of long-term caregiver, maybe a few hours, maybe 24/7, maybe something in between, that are looking around and saying, what the heck are my options out there? And it is tempting to use somebody that is not, vetted and is not somebody that has that is working for an agency and say, look, they could use the few bucks, I could use the help, and let's go ahead and bring somebody in. So we were talking about some of those problems that can arise, and some of them are really, well, in a word, scary and difficult. And so Jeff Hacker has been gracious enough to come in and kind of highlight some of those and focus on them. And so kind of to sum it up a little bit here, Jeff, in general, so what should people be doing, looking for, et cetera, when they're kind of factoring all this in?
Well, I think they should do their homework. And doing their homework means conducting an investigation into the person that you're going to use if you're not using a home healthcare service company like yourself. You should conduct some type of background check. You got to know the person, as I said earlier, know their background and experience and qualifications. But you also have to guard against temptation in life. Temptation in life is that they'll have access to all of the personal property that's in the house. So it's not uncommon for things to go missing, whether it's jewelry, whether it's money, whether it's some other prized possessions. It's been known to happen. And also sometimes that I've seen is that elderly people a lot of times are very good-natured, and so they can be taken advantage of, have their bank accounts changed all of a sudden, or have checks forged, and the law rightfully calls that financial abuse. Elder abuse is both physical and financial, so obviously we're concerned about the person that you'd hire not abusing your family member, but you also have to guard against the financial temptation.
There's licensure requirement out there now for home care agencies, and they've got to be licensed themselves as well as can only use caregivers that are licensed, which means they're background checked and so on and so forth. My thought would be somebody would want to go through that same process that an agency does to look at the background of somebody before they bring them in and have those temptations.
Well, the answer is yes. And let's suppose that you've got an extended family. You don't do what a company like yourself does, and something happens to grandma. Your family members, and something bad happens to grandma, God forbid, your family members are going to look to you and say you acted below the standard of care. You were negligent because you didn't do what you should have been done and what's done in the industry.
You're listening to the hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I appreciate it, Jeff, coming in and coming into the Home Care Resource Hour. Really good information. And you can check out information here for Jeff. He's an attorney here with the Hacker Law Group in Santa Clarita. Learn more about them on the internet at www.hackerlawgroup.com. And if you want more information or have questions regarding our conversation here on the show, you can contact Home Care Services 661-412-0710 or go to our website, homecaresantaclarita.com. And that wraps it up for this time. Join us again every second Wednesday of the month at 12 noon for the Home Care Resource Hour. I am your host, Rick Ferrante of Home Care Services on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.